Well, welcome everyone. Um, I want to thank you all for joining me tonight. And again, I want to just really deeply express my sense of gratitude and the feeling of appreciation to all of you tuning in, really from all around the world. So I deeply want to thank you. And I invite you just to fully join me here this evening, to fully let go of whatever it is that you're doing. And just really come here in this moment. There's a tendency, if we watch something online, to multitask or to be running around our house doing our thing, doing the laundry, whatever. And if you have to, that's okay. But if you want to have a deeper experience, I invite you just to fully settle down. Just to sit down, just to really come into your being. And see if you can fully be here. And one of the big things that I want us to focus on tonight is just to see if you can be open to receiving something much greater than yourself, much greater than any words I have to say or any talk that I have to give, but to truly open in a deeply and profound way. So often when we sit down to listen to something, we're asking ourselves, what can I get from this talk? What can I get from this experience? But the invitation right now is, can you let go of even that? Just, in a sense, open your heart fully. And welcome your nature and your absolute divine nature, as well as to welcome, a descent from above, an ascent from below. And so with this in mind, I'm going to get into the satsang or the talk tonight, and I have all kinds of announcements and these types of things. But I really wanted just to start off with this invitation. Can we be fully here, 100% here, totally here? And what that basically means is, can we surrender whatever inertia that we have in our mind? Can we surrender whatever inertia we have in our emotional world? And just fully come here and just let it all go. There's nothing we need to worry about, say, for the next hour or so. Can we drop it all and just come into this present moment and begin to notice what's here? And can you notice a sense of quiet that's here, a sense of openness which is here? And wherever you're at, even if, for example, your mind is racing right now, can you notice that your racing thoughts, that your experience of anxiety is happening within a vast space of silence, within a vast space of peace? And so this is the invitation right now, is, can we notice what's here? Can you notice just the most basic sense of quiet, most basic sense of silence which is here? And can you give yourself to this? And so from this place of being the silence, being the spaciousness, can you be open to receiving? Can you be open to receiving what's here? And so we'll start off just with a real basic teaching today. For those of you who are new to my teachings, so I'm doing this online webcast, and I'm also doing it in alignment or in collaboration with the Satori School, on my website. And so on my website, I'm going to post these weekly exercises. And for those of you who have joined the school, What that means is you're committed to showing up to the satsang, you're committed to doing the weekly exercises, and deeply sitting with these questions. Deeply sitting with what's here. Deeply just going into these things and just really asking ourselves, what does it mean? What does it mean to be free? What does it mean to be human? And so this is my invitation to you, is to join me in these exercises, to join me in these practices. And these are practices that I've developed over the years, practices that have been given to me, by my teachers, practices that have been handed down from generations. And basically they're questions of inquiry. Can you sit with these questions in a deep way? And can you let them actually change where you identify? Where your seat of identification is. And so for one of the first practices, I guess the first practice I did put up on the website, and basically if you go to the website and you go to, craigholliday.com, and you click on the school link, and then you scroll down to weekly exercises. And there'll be a video there. And the first video, the exercise is to grab a mirror and to simply look directly into your eyes. And can you notice your own radiance? Can you notice your own divinity? Can you notice your own beauty? Can you notice your presence? Can you meditate upon your presence? I have this little baby right now, and when I grab her and out of the shower, and when I'm drying her off, we play this little game where we look into the mirror. And so when she looks into the mirror, she lights up her face. She gets this biggest smile. She gets so happy to see herself. And what I've noticed, through my years of teaching and working with individuals, is that most people, when they see themselves, they don't smile. They look in the mirror and there's this sense of, oh, you, you, the old, bag of bones, or the one who's suffering. And there's all this self-judgment and criticism. I wish you were different. I wish you were bigger. I wish you were smaller. I wish you were taller. I wish you were more beautiful. And so with this practice, I hope that you do not engage this practice through the lens of your mental mind, your egoic mind, but engage this practice through your heart. Can you allow your heart to see itself looking out of your eyes? It sounds kind of silly to say that, but can you see your own radiance? Can you see your own divinity? Can you experience your vastness, the mystery of what you are? And can you meditate upon this experience? By that I mean, can you surrender to that experience? Can you give yourself over to that experience? If any of you have seen the great Saint Amachi from India, and you go up to get a hug from her, if you look directly into her eyes, it will seem as if you're looking into the whole universe. That the whole universe is within her eyes. I remember many years ago, about 20 years ago, I went and I saw her. I remember my teacher telling me, look into her eyes. See what you find. So I went up there to get my hug, and I looked directly into her eyes. And I was just awestruck by what I saw. And of course, just being in her presence, she's just radiating incredible waves of love and compassion. But then I noticed something quite paradoxical. And one day I was just sitting with my little dog. I have this little Shih Tzu dog that was given to me as a gift. And I remember looking into his eyes and seeing the whole universe. I thought, oh my God, here's God looking right back at me. And then I started playing this game looking into my own eyes. Just being very quiet, just looking directly into my eyes. And again, this doesn't work if you look through the lens of your mind. It works if you look through the lens of your heart. When you look out to the world through your heart, you see beauty, you see divinity, you see radiance. And I'm always shocked. So many people live in such great suffering because they see life through the lens of the critic, through some judgmental place within themselves. So I invite you just to drop all of that and just be willing to look directly at the hugeness, at the vastness, at the beauty of your nature. And so the way we do this is we feel into our experience of ourselves. What do I feel like? Not in a mental way, not in an emotional way, but my essence. What does my essence feel like? And so you play with this question. I invite you to play with it now. And I invite you to play with it, for the next week. And in a week or so, I'll post another exercise. The reason that this exercise is so important is we have to establish, it has to become quite clear that what we are is divine, that what we are is God. If you don't know that in your nature, then your life will be a life of suffering. Because anytime we're identified with our mind, I shouldn't say anytime, but if we're identified with our mind, for a period of time, at some point we will begin to suffer. The Buddha once said, the mind is insatiable. It's always looking, it's always wanting, it's always desiring, it's always hoping or fearing. And so if we're aligned with a mind that is insatiable, we will suffer. And that's just basic wisdom. But if we know ourselves to be divine, well, then we will have quite a blissful life, quite an incredible life, quite an awe-filled life. And so I invite you to join me in this practice. I'm just looking directly into your nature, directly into your soul. Just giving yourself permission to experience your essence, giving yourself permission to experience your beauty. And so can this be the object of our meditation? Can our goodness, our divinity be the object of our meditation? Instead of using meditation to escape ourselves or escape our life. And I met with a couple people earlier today, and they were trying so hard to use spirituality to bypass, to escape their life, to escape their experience. Anytime we try to escape something, it feels painful. It's much more wonderful to be willing just to face something head on, to embrace something head on, to feel whatever is within us, to meet the relationship that is in front of us with a sense of love, a sense of divinity. And so I invite you just to play with this. this experience of standing in your divinity and meeting life from what you are. And so I guess this would be the next step, is can you meet life consciously? Can you meet life in an awakened way? And oftentimes that means doing the opposite of what our mind wants to do. Our mind wants to run, our mind wants to avoid, our mind wants to skip out on any kind of painful experience. But you see, the mind of God is not afraid of pain. The mind of God is within you if you're willing to let go into it. But as we let go into it, there's a couple of things we have to face. And one of the biggest things we have to face is pain. We have to face our own unconsciousness. We have to face all of our faulty belief systems, our biases, the places where we are attached, the places which we fear. We have to face all of our humanity and just be fully willing to meet these places with love. And so I guess I'll just get into the questions. It seems like a nice segue. But I thought I would just again remind you, can you continue to directly experience your nature in this moment? Can you also continue to experience it, say, a transmission of divinity right now in this moment? And so can you open your heart, to something greater? And allow yourself to be flooded with peace. Allow yourself to be flooded with love. Allow yourself to be flooded with truth and compassion. Can we all open ourselves fully and completely right now to something much greater than our own nature? And so you can join me in this. So right now I'm feeling quite overwhelmed with divinity right now. And so I thank God for that. Okay, so Claire wrote me an email here. I thought you might be able to give me some insight into the panic attacks I've been having consistently for several months now. I've been on a spiritual path for a long time. Is this part of the process in the path, part of awakening? I chant my mantras more. The panic attacks are sometimes disabling. I have no sense of what is feared, just an unsettledness of being in this world. Do you have any understandings about these things or how I might maneuver them? That's a great question. This is, something I seem to work with a lot, is people who have a spiritual awakening and then they begin having panic attacks, or people with no spiritual awakening and they're having panic attacks. But people tend to be, in this world, we tend to get overwhelmed by feeling. And so the first thing that we can look at is do we have a bias against feeling? If we're truly honest, most of us will admit yes. We have a bias against overwhelming feelings. And if we look at why that is, our egoic nature, it tries very hard to control life and to have a sense or the perception that we are in control, that everything is under control. But if you look out at life, we are absolutely not in control in this world. All kinds of crazy things happen all the time. And so part of being awake is admitting the truth that we are not in control. At any moment, anything can happen. Anything. God could pull the plug on this whole universe. God could pull the plug on our planet. Our dog could die. And we could get run over. We could step on a landmine. All kinds of crazy things happen in this world. And being awake is being awake to the fact that we are not in control. And for most people, when we truly admit that we're not in control, when we take, say, that artificial door of ego out of the equation, anytime you lift the ego out of you, anytime you transcend the ego, anytime you see through the ego, anytime you open the door and just see, oh, my egoic nature, which tries to control, which tries to repress feelings, which tries to have life figured out. Anytime you truly see that it does not have life figured out, that it is not in control, that we are not in control. Anytime you truly see that and just open that door, oftentimes waves of repressed emotions come forward. And they often come forward in the form of panic attacks. And so we might just ask, do I have a bias against feeling? If you want to be free, you cannot have a bias against feeling. Being free means you are open to everything. You are one with everything. It doesn't mean that you prefer to have a panic attack. You're still, as long as you're human, you're going to have some preferences. But the more you let go of preferences, the more free you become. The more you let go of your agendas, your hopes, your fears, your biases, the more free you become. And so each day, I sit with people who have some form of anxiety, some form of, say, overwhelming feeling, myself included. And the invitation is, can you just look at this feeling? What is this feeling within me? Can I meet this feeling totally, completely with love? Can I feel this feeling fully and completely and allow it to rage through my body and release? And so in the question, she asked, how might I maneuver them? So here's the problem. If we try to maneuver, if we try to dance around our emotional nature, those very emotions, they never release. They just stay within us. They just kind of move, say, to a different part of our body. But they still continue to stay repressed within us. So if you're having panic, can you open to the panic? Can you breathe through the panic? If you have anger or irritation, can you open to the irritation? Can you breathe into the irritation? Can you pull that irritation into you? Can you pull the panic into you? By that can you pull it close to you so that there's no separation between you and it? Can you experience it fully? When you feel something fully, it begins to heal, it begins to release. That's how this world works. That's how our energetic nervous system works. So the more fully willing you are to meet your panic, and by that I mean the more fully willing you are to feel it, to experience it, the quicker it will release and let go. But the kicker is you have to be totally willing to feel panic. I can't tell you how many times I laid in bed, I laid on the floor of my office, I laid down in the park, and had huge amounts of feelings just rage through my body. Tears would come, sometimes hysterical laughter would come. Sometimes I'd almost be foaming at the mouth while these emotions rage through my body. So to be awake means that the ego is not in between us and our true nature. There's no wall between us and our true nature. It's one thing. To be deluded is to be lost in your mind, is to have division within you, to think you are your mind, to have separation within your body, between your body, your emotions, your mind, your heart, to have separation between your divinity and your humanity. That's what it's like to live in pain, to live in suffering, to live in separation. And so the opposite is to live in freedom. When you live in freedom, you feel everything. So that's one of the other questions I got. That somebody was asking me, and they were telling me they don't like to feel what's within them. I said, well, you're going to have a really difficult time being awake if you're afraid of feelings. To be free means to be free of fear. It doesn't mean to be free of feeling. As long as you're human, as long as you have a nervous system, you will have plenty of feeling. In fact, when you wake up, you tend to have a lot more feeling because there's not a superego in between you and what you're feeling and what's outside of you or supposedly outside of you. So I got a lot of questions about how do I get rid of feelings? You don't. You do not get rid of your humanity. You don't get rid of the ability to feel. Being enlightened, being free, being awake does not mean that you are a stone Buddha. It means you are an embodied Buddha walking around in this world. And when you walk around in this world, you feel everything. You experience everything. You are one with everything. It feels as if all of life is exploding out of you and happening within you. And that you and all of life are one. And so if there's pain present, you will feel pain. If there's suffering present, you will feel suffering. When someone comes and sits in a chair across from me and they have pain within them, I feel that pain. I experience that pain. Sometimes they're unwilling to feel their own pain. And I start crying. I start feeling the pain. I start grieving for them. Because to me, it's just a natural thing. There's pain there. I naturally grieve. But the thing is, there's not a fear, afraid of the sadness, feeling like I'm going to get swallowed up by the sadness. I have yet to see an individual be swallowed up by sadness or anger. I've seen people do silly things because of sadness and anger, myself included. But the invitation is can we step into our heart and meet our panic, meet our irritation, meet our frustration, meet whatever feelings we're having. Can we meet them with love? As we do so, we become love. The feeling releases, and we're left with a sense of love, a sense of peace, and a sense of clarity. And so thank you for this question. It's a beautiful question. And so I think I'll just transition on to the next question. Someone wrote into me, I recently had a huge heartfelt awakening. It's funny, I'm meeting so many people who are having, awakenings recently, whether it's people who watch this Satsang or come to my classes or, on a retreat with perhaps one of my other teachers or or just out of nowhere. There's lots of people all over the world having these awakenings. So it's a beautiful thing. But of course, then there's a lot of people having awakenings and then getting confused, say post-awakening. So here's a question about that. I had a huge heartfelt awakening and feel as if I'm losing it. How do I not become lost in my mind again? Okay, that's a great question. So oftentimes when we have an awakening, it will come with a great deal of fireworks, a great deal of explosiveness, a great deal of bliss and energy and all sorts of things. And then afterwards, at some point, our mind comes forward. And when people's minds come forward, they think, oh no, I lost it. I lost the awakening experience. And that may be true. You may have lost it. If you identify with your mind, you may lose that direct experience of awakening. But what I invite you to look at is what is here? What is true about the experience you had? And by that I mean, say you have a big heartfelt awakening, there's lots of bliss, there's lots of energy. There's also going to be something else there. And if it's a true awakening, there'll be a sense of silence, a sense of peace, a sense of vastness. And a sense of, say, heartfelt innocence. And so I would invite you, if you're in that thing where I got it, like I had the awakening and I got it, I'm so happy, and then you feel as if you've lost it, that it's disappeared, that it's left your consciousness. Can you just become quiet and just notice the most basic sense? If you turn awareness upon itself, is there a sense of a quiet aliveness and peace here? Is there a sense of vastness here? Is there a sense of divinity, of innocence, of openness in my heart? And can I give myself over to this? If you're lost in your mind, can you just come back? Just notice in a very direct way. Can you just step out of thought? And just notice, oh yes, there's this ever-present awareness here. That's silent, that's clear, that's awake. Okay, good. Be with that. Rest in that. Give yourself over to that. In a sense, that's what this week's exercise is about. You know, the Satori School exercises, it's about, can you notice what's here all the time? Can you notice your essence? Can you fall in love with your essence? Can you give yourself over fully to your essence? I'm sorry, I'm just so overwhelmed with light. It's a little bit difficult for me to speak this evening. But can you give yourself over to your own nature, to your own goodness? And I could even say this, if you find that to be difficult, can you come into your heart and can you just simply open to God and say, God, will you help me with this? You don't have to use the word God, but life, you know, Shiva, Kali, whoever you pray to, Buddha. Can you open my heart? Just the very act of prayer is an act of surrender. It's just coming into your nature and saying, I give up. I can't do this. You show me the way. And you can just feel, there's a sense of humility in that, a sense of just dropping into your heart. Dropping into this vast sense of innocence. And allowing this innocence to guide you. And allowing yourself to experience yourself as that innocence. That's the key. Can you know yourself as the innocence? Can you know yourself as the divinity which you are? I always think that 99% of all of our problems are healed through just stepping into our divinity, through knowing ourselves as divine. The majority of our problems disappear when you step into your own radiant nature. So this is my invitation to all of you. You step fully into what you are. All that simply means is that you come out of your head into your heart. If you have emotional pain in your emotional center, feel that pain, let it go, but then go deeper than that into your heart. Feel your divinity, feel your innocence. Experience that quietness that's looking out of your eyes right now. Give yourself over to this fully. And from this space, almost like a little child, can you open to something even greater than your nature? Can you open to God? Can you open to life descending into you, filling your being with bliss and peace and vastness? I'm always amazed at when people don't do this. Like I say, well, what could be a greater life than doing this? We chase after so many silly things. Okay. And so the next question is there an end to all the purging and purifying of karma and painful emotions within me? Yes, of course there is an end. There absolutely is an end. And most of the time we ask a question like that when we're in a tremendous amount of pain. And when everything that has a beginning, it has an end. But I can also say that as long as we're human, we're going to experience some level of suffering, some level of growth. We'll have some evolving edge. And that's just part of life. We live in an evolutionary world, so we're always going to be evolving. This world is always evolving. And you will experience pain. The more you resist pain, the more painful life is. The more you have this thought, when will this end? And the more pain you'll be in, because you're asking life to bend over backwards and to live, how should I say this, to live under the rules of the mind. The mind doesn't get to choose when the pain will end. If we go back to that first teaching about control, we don't control what happens in life. Pain happens. Sometimes when we're humans, we experience pain. Sometimes we experience a great deal of pain. Sometimes we go through divorce. Sometimes our children die. Sometimes our parents die. Sometimes our partners die. Sometimes we lose our jobs. Sometimes people leave us. The pain ends when we stop resisting it. When you stop resisting pain and feel pain fully, unencumbered, uninhibited, if you just give yourself permission to fully feel pain, what you will experience is bliss. As crazy as that sounds, all pain is energy. It's moving through your body. Your nervous system interprets it as something that's bad. If you open to it fully, you'll realize it's simply energy. I'm not saying that if you get a smack in the face with a hammer that's not going to hurt. It will absolutely hurt. But emotional pain, psychological pain, all of it is energy. And I don't say that to belittle it, but if you can experience it fully with a totally open heart, even if you have a huge cry, if you cry for hours, but you're totally open with yourself, you'll feel so incredible, so wonderful. You'll feel like life is just flooding through you. As crazy as that sounds. But the only way you really know this is through giving yourself over to it fully and seeing what happens. Okay, so that was a great question. Is there an end to it? Yes. Whatever it is that you're struggling with, it will end. Normally, if it's tremendous emotional pain or turmoil, sometimes we struggle with something for 6 weeks. Sometimes it's 6 months. But if that turns into 6 years, then chances are we're doing something wrong. And then the normal thing that we're doing wrong is we're believing our thoughts that whatever happened should not have happened. The point is it did happen. So can we open-heartedly embrace it, grieve it, and then put our power and our attention on creating the kind of life that we want to create? And so how do we do that? Through loving everything. Through choosing how we respond to life. Through choosing how we react to life. And sometimes people tell me, it's rude for you to say that we can choose our experience. I'd say it's actually not rude. It's rude to the ego, because the ego wants to think that something painful happens to us that we have to greatly suffer. But we can consciously choose how we experience it. We can consciously choose to be joyful. We can consciously choose to be happy. We can consciously choose to be grateful, despite what life gives to us. When you begin to realize this, you begin to realize your own power, your own authority, your own strength, your own mastery. It takes someone who's deeply mature to be willing to choose their experience, to choose how they experience life. Not that many people are that mature. Most people say, oh, if I'm in pain, that means life is bad, and I have to fall down in that rabbit hole of my mind, believe everything I think, and go and live in a world of eternal suffering. Or, that's one experience we can have. Or we can choose how we relate to our experience. We choose how to experience life. There's been many times in my life when the carpet has been pulled out from under me. Many times when I was in tremendous suffering. And I believed in the suffering. I believed that there was something wrong with me. I believed that life was against me. And so that's one way of living. A different way of living is consciously choosing how you're going to experience life. So I live in Southwest Colorado, and in Southwest Colorado it snows a lot. This week it snowed a couple feet. A number of years ago, my mantra used to be, I hate winter. And so if you have a mantra that says, I hate winter, if you have a belief system that says, I hate winter, and you live in a place where it snows a lot, you're going to suffer greatly. So I woke up the other morning, I looked outside, and my Jeep was covered in snow. A foot of snow. I had to get to work. So I got out there and I shoveled my driveway, shoveled the Jeep out. But there was no hatred towards the snow. There was a sense of seeing the beauty in the snow, seeing the aliveness in the sky, seeing how wonderful it is that I have a Jeep with four-wheel drive. And I got to work, and our snow shoveler who works at my office, I'll say that differently. I own a holistic health center, and we have a person who shovels the snow. He went on vacation this week, and so when I got to my office, I had to shovel the pathway. I had to shovel the back deck. I began shoveling the parking lot, and I was trying to shovel very quickly because my first client of the morning was coming here. After about an hour of shoveling, I came in and saw a text message that said, hey, I can't come in today due to the weather. I just laughed and said, okay. But I chose to be okay with it. There's just a natural sense of life is good. Other people, when you're given a foot of snow, they go into panic. Like when my mother's around, she goes into panic if there's a foot of snow. In fact, this morning I had to get up on my roof and unclog the chimney because the fires weren't, the wood stove wasn't working in my home. So to climb up on the roof, take apart the screen on top of the chimney and clean it out. I've worked with a lot of people back in my contracting days who were just terrified of getting up on a roof. If we're terrified of such experiences, the invitation is, can you breathe into that experience? Can you meet it with love? And can you see that you're actually totally okay? Like, I am totally okay. I even called a guy and said, hey, can you come clean my chimney out? He said, oh, you need to shovel the whole roof off and make it dry, and then I'll come up there. And I said, why don't you just walk right up on it with the snow on it? He said, oh, no, it's too dangerous. And I said, oh, okay. I said, well, I'll just walk up there on it with the snow because I'm not scared of falling off a roof. I've fallen off roofs before, and on the snow, when you fall off a roof, you fall into snow. So, if we want to be on the spiritual path, there has to be a sense of fearlessness. And the way we develop fearlessness is through embracing the things that frighten us. Of course, the first time I got on the roof, it was frightening. But now I'm really used to walking on roofs. And so we have to be tough. There has to be this sense of, I can handle anything. But that sense doesn't come from your egoic nature. It comes from the hugeness of your heart. And the way you're able to step into this confidence that I'm speaking about is ironically, through embracing pain. When you embrace pain with love, you naturally find, oh, that love is greater than any story in my mind. Love is greater than any pain I've experienced. What I am is greater, outlives every experience I've ever had. And then you allow this experience of your own divinity to flood your everyday life. To flood your everyday life. And by that I mean you give yourself over more and more to your divinity and allow your divinity to be what you know life to be. When you see your own goodness, when you see your own divinity, when you experience your own divinity firsthand, you begin to experience it everywhere in the eyes of everyone. In the dog, the cat, the trees, the wind, the police, the military, whatever. And so I invite you to see life through the lens of your heart and to allow your goodness, to allow your divinity to be reflected back to you. You see life through the lens of your, say, disgruntled egoic nature, well, you will truly suffer. You will truly suffer. Just looking at the questions again. You often speak, this is the question, you often speak about the biases of the mind. And you speak about the collective consciousness and the conditioned mind. Can you speak about what some of these biases are and what it is you mean by that? Sure. We've all been handed a mind. We've all been handed a body. And within this body mind, within this nervous system, are all sorts of biases. In a sense, I've already spoken about some of them. The biggest biases are to seek pleasure and avoid pain at all costs. The bias of wanting to control our experience, our environment in every moment. The bias, to always feel good. The desire to always wanting to protect yourself. But say if we look at this last one, is it true that I need to protect myself? So say you're in a relationship, and the relationship is, you've been together a long time, it's grown kind of cold and stale. You've gotten in a bunch of fights, and then you begin to put up all these egoic walls between you and your partner. Begin to live in resentment and suffering and pain and separation. Oftentimes people come into my office, I see people on Skype, and I ask them, is it true you need to protect yourself from your partner? And they look at me like, what? What kind of question is that? And why would you ask such a question? Well, I said, well, you're fighting with your partner, you're defending yourself against your partner. You're playing games with your partner where you're not being intimate. You're not giving or receiving affection, you're withholding. You're trying to punish them. Why do you play all these games? Oh, because, they were once mean to me, is what oftentimes they say. Because someone was mean to you doesn't mean you need to protect yourself from them. So it's quite an interesting question. The ego would say, oh, absolutely. If someone was mean to me, I need to protect myself from them. And so I want to be clear here. If someone is abusive to you, or if they're, violent or whatever, by all means, leave the situation. Protect yourself, absolutely. But say your partner does something to you that hurts your feelings. Is it true that you need to shut down? Is it true you need to close your heart? Even as I say that, closing your heart, I begin to experience pain. Can you stay open with someone who's hurt you? I mean, if you've lived long enough, almost everyone in your life has hurt you to some degree, whether it's your children, your parents, your partners, whatever. And if you live behind this wall of, oh, they hurt me and I'm a victim of life, that's just a huge level of suffering. Or can you live in an open-hearted way despite someone hurting you? There's people who've greatly hurt me in life, but energetically I am completely open to them. Now, it doesn't mean I'll let them hurt me again. It doesn't mean that I don't set boundaries. It doesn't mean that go sit in a room with people who hate me or something silly like that. But if I do find myself in a situation like that, can I continue to be open? Can I feel the pain that's there? Can I grieve it? Can I let it go? And continue, and can I continue to experience oneness with all of life? So you stop feeling oneness if you're unwilling to feel. You stop feeling oneness if you're putting up walls of protection between you and all of life. And so, yeah, we've been given these minds. We have a collective consciousness which seeks pleasure, avoids pain, which is constantly trying to protect itself from things it doesn't need to protect itself from. And that's always trying to control. You will lose at all of those games. You cannot control life. If you try to seek pleasure and avoid pain, you'll simply create more pain, more grasping, more suffering. If you try to control, I think I spoke about that. If you try to control, well, that just won't work. If you try to protect yourself always, you'll feel as if you're living in a lonely cage, a lonely jail cell. Yeah, it just breaks my heart to talk about these things because that is, for most people, the human experience. So the invitation is can you open in a courageous way to live in a way that's greater than your own conditioned nature, that's greater than your own collective unconsciousness. And in order to live in a way that's greater, we have to step out of the mind and come into our heart. And so right now I thought we might just spend a little bit of time in meditation. So I encourage you to get yourself in a comfortable seat. I'll guide us in meditation for the next little bit. And so the first thing is, can you just begin by taking some deep, full breaths. Truly open your heart. Can you open your heart to receiving the hugeness of your own divinity? Can you open your heart to receiving your own radiance, your own goodness, your own innocence? Can you deeply open your heart, fully open your heart in a surrendered way? And just notice how good it feels. Notice how good it feels to be overwhelmed by your own goodness, your own hugeness, your own vastness. Your own love and compassion. And so you're breathing in to your heart, feeling your heart, experiencing your radiance. experiencing a sense of quietness there. Simultaneously, you may notice in your third eye area an incredible brilliance, a vast and never-ending light. By that I mean a light that shines out in every direction. It seems to go on forever. So let's see if we can notice both things at once. The love and radiance of our heart, the vastness and brilliance of our mind, or can you notice very bright light shining in your space you call your mind? And actually those two worlds merging, the world of the mind, the world of the heart. You experience those two worlds merging into one. And of course, if you're having trouble with lots of thoughts, the invitation is just to let go of the thoughts, let go of paying attention to the thoughts, but to instead pay attention to the space out of which thoughts arise. That deep sense of quiet in the center of your mind. Notice that that same deep sense of quiet is in your heart. Of course, if any of you struggle with tightness or tension in your throat, the invitation is simply relax the throat chakra and allow there to be an open and unencumbered flow. Between the space you call your mind and the space you call your heart, which in reality is simply one space. Can you begin to experience this divinity everywhere within you? Your shoulders, your neck, your arms, your hands, your upper back, your mid back, your low back, your sacrum, your solar plexus, your belly. Can you open to receiving this hugeness of divinity, which you are? Of course, if there's any pain coming forward within you, can you fully be okay with it? Can you embrace it? With a total sense of love, a sense of acceptance. Can you breathe and allow this bright light to shine throughout you? So you're opening and relaxing in your back, your solar plexus, your belly. Allowing your own radiance to wake up wherever you find your awareness. Your belly's waking up, your solar plexus are waking up, your back's waking up, your arms and your hands are waking up. Of course, let's include the pelvis in this. So can you allow this light to send down fully into you, spread throughout your entire being. You allow yourself to be a lighthouse, a vessel of light, a vessel of divinity, shining out to every aspect of yourself. So if any aspect of you is in pain or suffering, can you allow this brilliance to melt that pain or suffering? Can you allow this goodness to shine out to all the world, to your friends, to your family, to the ones you love, to the ones you don't love, the ones you don't know. Can you allow this hugeness of divinity shine out to all? Can you allow yourself to be overwhelmed by your own goodness? What a crazy concept. Can I allow myself to be overwhelmed by my own goodness, by my own radiance? And give yourself fully over to your experience. You give yourself over fully to your radiance. Can you give yourself permission to be this vast, to be this open, to be this free? To be a bright light in this world. A world that often seems dark. So I invite you this night to join me in being a lighthouse. Seeing this light shine out from your heart throughout your country, including the entire world, meeting any aspect of yourself that's in suffering, but also meeting anyone who's in suffering. There's a great deal of people suffering in the Middle East, in Syria and Iraq, in Israel and Palestine, China and Tibet, in the Horn of Africa, the Congo, Sudan. Perhaps we are suffering. So the invitation here is, can you allow the goodness of your heart shine out to all? Can we embrace our pain or the pain of the world with a sense of love, the sense of brilliance and light, with a sense of hope and goodness? Can you allow your heart to shine out to all? Can you allow a heavenly descent from God to shine down into you? To the space of your mind, the space of your heart, the space of the heart, shine out to all. Can you allow your own heart and mind to be filled with this love, to be filled with this grace, to be filled with this brilliance? So I want to deeply thank you all for joining me this evening. Again, I feel so honored that you'll sit here with me. I feel so honored by all the individuals who joined the Satori School. I encourage you to stay committed to the practices, to the work, and to watch your life change in a huge way, in a vast way. I encourage you to continue to sit with this meditation a little while longer, just giving yourself permission to fall in love with yourself, to fall in love with your beauty, your divinity, your radiance. And of course, there's the reminder that I'm supposed to tell everyone that this satsang is supported by donation. So please, it's very helpful if you offer a donation. There's a link on my website or a link on my YouTube channel. If you offer one of those, I deeply, deeply thank you and deeply appreciate it. It helps me to spread this work. And so again, I just want to thank you for sharing in this grace. I deeply encourage you to give yourself over to it more and more. Allow your life to be transformed into a life of divinity. Have a wonderful evening or wonderful morning or wonderful afternoon, whatever time of day it is where you're at. Take good care. May peace be with you. May peace be with all. Hopefully I'll see you next time. The next satsang is March 10th and March 31st. Also, I'm supposed to put a reminder out there for those of you in Northern California. I will be at the Unity Church of Marin in Novato, California. I think that's by San Rafael on March 22nd at 5:30 p.m. if you want to come join me there. Okay, take good care. May peace be with you.